Before we start, let's summarize Paul's argument. The Jews were saying that it isn't fair to punish people for not knowing Jesus. Paul responds that nobody is being punished because they don't know Jesus. They are punished because they choose to do wrong. Romans 2:14-16. Indeed, when Gentiles do not have the law, do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness with their thoughts, sometimes accusing them, and other times even defending them. This will take place on the day when God judges people's secrets through Jesus Christ, as my gospel declares. You can't judge people if they don't know what they did was wrong. So the first point in Paul's argument is that everybody in all cultures around the world have within their hearts the knowledge of right and wrong. So in every culture, they know that stealing is wrong, lying is wrong, murder is wrong, and therefore they are accountable. Paul's argument is subtle, and at first you may be tempted to go, say what? But it's not so radical once you hear his whole argument. What he's really saying is that people don't know Jesus. They're going to be judged by their conscience. If they can stand in front of God and say, I never did anything wrong. I always treated everybody well. I never lied to anybody. I never slandered anybody. And whenever anybody needed help, I was there. Basically, they're going to be judged by the two laws, the two great laws. And if they can say they never did anything wrong, then they will not be punished. The charge that the Jews and Gentiles alike are under the power of sin. As it is written, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands. There is no one who seeks God. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is in their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways, and the ways of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. So, what he's saying is, when everybody stands in front of God, nobody will be able to say with a clear conscience that they never violated the two great laws. Remember the two great laws. Number 1, love God with all your heart. And number 2, love your neighbor. When he lists these things, he brackets them with the first commandment. He starts with, there is no one who seeks God, and he ends it with, there is no fear of God before their eyes. Then in the middle, he has all the commandments that are related to loving your neighbor. And here we have one of my pet peeves. The Greek word translated for fear is one of those green words where you can say, he's green, and that could mean he's just learning something. He's just started work and he's green. Or it could be seasick. In this case, the word can either be fear or it can be respect. And when it's respect, it has no relationship to fear. Romans 13:7. Pay everyone what is owed. Taxes to whom taxes are due. Revenue to whom revenue is due. Respect to whom respect is due. Honor to whom honor is due. That same word that was translated as fear in this passage is translated as respect. Notice that there is no concept of fear here. If you should respect somebody, respect them. Not necessarily fear them. So, I'm thinking in a lot of the cases in the New Testament where you're supposed to fear God, that really should be translated, you need to respect God. God is to be respected, not so much feared. Romans 3:23-24. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and all who are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. So he completes this argument by saying, you know what? Nobody can stand in front of God with a clear conscience. We all need Jesus. But Jesus will justly and freely, by his grace, give us redemption. On a side note, that phrase where it says glory of God doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it. The word glory actually has the idea of praise, so it means praise coming from God. For all have sinned and fall short of receiving God's praise. The phrase glory of God is kind of curious. If you think about that, what does that mean? That if we sin, that somehow that diminishes God's glory? Doesn't quite make sense. Well, the secret is the word glory. It can be translated as either glory or praise. The of God is what we call a genitive clause. So this could be translated as glory of God, but I suspect it should be translated more as praise from God. So, for all have sinned and fall short of receiving God's praise. We covered the highlights of Paul's arguments, but there are two passages I want to come back and visit. One seems to imply that we're saved by works, so I want to talk about that. The other passage mentions the day of the Lord, so it's like, what the heck is that? So I'm going to want to talk about that. So next week we'll talk about, is he saying that you're saved by works, or what is that about? And then the week after that, we'll hit the day of the Lord.